We're going to be talking about CM Punk and Brock Lesnar and UFC. Lots of talk going over the weekend. The news broke on Saturday night. CM Punk is officially UFC bound, only 1 or 2 weeks removed from when he broke his silence. The whole Stone Cold podcast. Vince said we'll see him back in WWE at some point. Boom! Minute later, he joins UFC. So a lot of talk going on right now with CM Punk, WWE, everything else going on with the straight-edge superstar. But RJ, I'll ask you first. You were very opinionated on the subject. We're very bipolar on this subject with, complete 180 from what I was thinking. So it makes for a great discussion. So I want to get your thoughts on CM Punk joining UFC and everything that you kind of talked about in your blog a couple days ago.
So yeah, the other night I was actually watching the pay-per-view. Obviously, I don't pay for it. It's like $60. I'm just going on a bootleg website, watch it. So I was watching it. I think it was right before the Anthony Pettis-Melendez fight that they announced that CM Punk was going to be in the UFC, and I was like, Jesus God. I was like, why? I see it more as like, obviously, I've been watching the UFC the last 5 years, so it's not like I just come out and say what I think, and it's like not really a valid topic, but I think like Lesnar going to the UFC made sense because Lesnar had like the NCAA championship background. He's a bigger guy, like he had to cut down for weight anyways, so he's always a heavier guy, and like a national championship wrestler. Most of the guys that wrestle have a wrestling background, and they're not even that highly touted. Like they might like go to the NCAA and wrestle, but they're not as like an NCAA champion like Lesnar, so I think he had the background. He just went back to his wrestling coach at Minnesota who trained him throughout his whole UFC career, so it's not like he went somewhere else. He had the old guys that used to train with him when he was in college. So it made sense. CM Punk, I think it's just a desperate move by the UFC. In my article, I pretty much went over like how a couple years ago they had like Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, Lesnar, like those are the guys. I'm pretty sure all their fights in the top 10 buyouts for UFC history. In the last couple of years, the guys that have been champion have kind of been hurt or just haven't got the star power that they had. Like the UFC buys have been pretty low lately, and like even the lower tier guys that like lightweight, featherweight, bantamweight, they're big stars just don't buy. There's not a lot of people want to go see like the small guys fight. It's kind of like if you want to see Rey Mysterio Sin Cara, that's not gonna main event a pay-per-view. But these guys sometimes have the main event a UFC pay-per-view. So I think Punk joining it's pretty much it's like having John Cena join the UFC. It's a big name. Has no has no mixed martial art background at all. It's not like he was like an amateur wrestler or anything like that. Or even if he had like high stakes in a wrestling background. It's a big name. They keep saying he's gonna start off 0-0, like he'll fight some really shitty guy at first. But what's the point of bringing him in? If he's gonna fight some shitty guy starting off the bat, then he wouldn't be in the main card of the fight anyways. He'd be in the undercard that no one would pay to see anyways. I think that's kind of just them saying it, and then will fight someone good. I saw yesterday that said Chael Sonnen said that he's going to fight someone that you guys know and something like that. But I feel like if he fights I think he's 170 or 185. I'm not sure which weight class he's in. But there's plenty of really good guys in those two weight classes. And I just think he's not ready at his age and not his lack of discipline in certain areas of mixed martial arts. I just think that a top 5, top 10 guy would really tool on him. I'm not saying it's not just a biased opinion because I don't really like him. I just think it's like saying if like just a random other superstar went to UFC at his age, he's 36. That's pretty much saying like Triple H when he was 36 went to UFC. Like, you really think he's gonna be that good? Probably not. Is it gonna make a lot of buys? Yeah, because it's a big name. He hasn't really done much since he left WWE. But I just think that with his lack of skill of discipline, I think it's gonna be a Kimbo Slice 2.0 for CM Punk in the UFC.
So, yeah, that being said, a lot of valid points there, so I definitely agree with that there. But, yeah, we'll go on two sides of the fence here. I'll put my fandom aside for CM Punk. So I like the move with CM Punk going to UFC. Different than, do I think he's going to be successful? And we talked about this before on Saturday when the news broke. I'm not going to say that he's going to win any titles or anything like that. I'm not going to say that he's going to be a top 10 guy whatsoever. It's all about timing with CM Punk, and we'll just have to wait and see over time. He does have some MMA background, and I think jiu-jitsu or maybe Muay Thai or something like that, so he's not going in this completely blind. But like you said, Brock Lesnar, amateur wrestler, and like you said, I don't want to make any like huge comparisons to Lesnar because CM Punk said himself, don't compare me to him. Two different stories, two different guys, absolutely. And I wanted to go back because there was a lot of people pooping all over my timeline on Saturday when the news broke. And for a lot of reasons, I can understand that. And so I went back and I read the reports when Brock Lesnar joined the UFC, and I think it was in October of 2007, to see if it got the same reaction, because he went on to become a huge superstar for the UFC, obviously. So I went back to go, look it up, do a little research, and see if people were, the same outburst happened when Brock Lesnar joined the company. And there was really no outburst whatsoever from MMA fans or wrestling fans.
Exactly.
I was expecting wrestling fans to be like, oh no, go back to WWE, but there was not one single comment on the various news threads that I was reading from '07 that were saying, they were like, oh, this should be a good move. The guy's a freaking animal. With CM Punk, he's like a long-term fan. He's always wanted to try it, so he's got balls in that sense, that he's actually going out to do this, even though he might get killed. They'll probably feed some loser to him. He's not going to face some top-tier guy right off the bat. So he's probably going to win his first fight. But like I was telling you, in the end, it's all about the money with WWE, UFC, whatever. They're just trying to pop a big rating here, and that's definitely what they're going to do in his first fight. The guy's going to be a fucking big draw, and I definitely understand that, where they're coming from that. But like you said, if he loses his first fight, which he probably won't if he's facing some scrub, but when he loses his first fight...
The thing is, will it matter? Will people really get all deep down if CM Punk beats some scrub bum?
What do you mean?
I think.
Oh, you mean? Do you think
I think they have to start him off with someone at least known or decent. Can't fight some guy that's some no name they pulled off the street to fight the guy.
They got to find a happy medium.
Exactly. You have to find someone that's somewhat of a recognizable face, but not like the best tier guy. But the thing is, in the weight classes he's fighting, and they're not that many notable names. But I think, like you said, Lesnar wasn't that big of a deal because he was out of WWE for 3 years. I think after that point, and. I don't know. He started off. The first guy he fought was Frank Mir, who was a former heavyweight champion. He lost in that fight. Should have won, but he lost. Then he fought Heath Herring, was a no-name, beat him. Then he went right to the UFC heavyweight championship, which was which was really big, and he beat Couture. Then he fought Shane Carn when he won that fight. Then he fought Velasquez and got destroyed. But that's when he had his diverticulitis, so he still had that when he fought Velasquez. Then his last fight, he fought Overeem and got knocked out again.
Like a minute and a half. Yeah, I saw that fight.
The liver kick, he was done after that one. But then he said he was all done. But I think he had, like you said, I don't think Punk will get the buys that he got, but he set records for buys in UFC. I remember the Couture fight. I think it was UFC 100. I think that was the highest they've ever had. There was 1.5 something buys or something like that. Yeah. Ridiculous. They had a lot of good fights on that show, too. But I think Punk's just a big spark, but I think he's a guy that can't really afford a loss. So, like I said, at least Lesnar's first loss, he lost to a former heavyweight champion.
A strong showing.
Exactly, and he was kicking this guy's ass too. They had caught him in a knee lock and he tapped out. But if he just goes out there and fights a couple scrubs, it's kind of like a Ryback. All right, he beat a few shitty guys, but then when he actually fights a real guy, it'll be a different story. I think it's obviously a good move for him, and he's not doing anything else. Why not try it out? I know Undertaker always wanted to. He said if mixed martial arts was bigger back in his day, he probably would have done that. But obviously it is contend.
Right now,
no chance. But I think it's a good run. Why not? Let's see what he does.
Yeah. So that being said, kind of play devil's advocate here, but on the good side, I noted this on Twitter a couple days ago. On the good side,
I'm back.
Okay. Oh, okay. So we'll get Brandon's thoughts on this in a second. But on the good side, we won't be getting. I was telling Brandon this before, that there won't be people saying, "Oh, CM Punk's gonna be back at the Rumble. He won't be back in Mania," because he's signed a multi-fight deal, which is at least a couple years.
It's at least a year or two.
Yeah, regardless of whether he wins or loses, he's gonna be there for at least a year or two. So we can at least stop worrying about that. And I'll talk about the other side of the story for a second. But Brandon, we were talking about this before, but I want to get your thoughts here on the air. What were you thinking? What was going through your head when CM Punk joined the UFC this past week?
Well, unlike both of you, I don't like UFC, and I've tried in the late 90s. Never really clicked with me. Like I told Graham before the show, I would see the UFC. I wouldn't pay full price for the first event. I'd go to my friend's house. They had it. But like you both have said, this is all about money. You're going to get the people who have been angry since January, April-ish time, that are pissed that I'm watching wrestling anymore. And I know quite a few people on Twitter who are like, I stopped watching WWE. They're going to get those fans to pay $60, and they're going to try to hook those fans. And I read on the dirt sheet. I don't know if this is obviously everything on the dirt sheet is subject to change or subject to reality. But they may want to use this as a point to start bringing in storylines. And since CM Punk's probably one of the best talkers out there, they say, you know what? Maybe we can start doing this guy. Maybe we can start having some kind of not so much a fake storyline or like I'm gonna go to your house and hit your mother in the face. but like give it some, because most of those guys in UFC can't talk. And another reason why is too, CM Punk's a pretty big name, and like I said, I don't watch UFC, but I know like all these guys have left in the past few years, retired, like that Liddell guy, Lesnar's gone, that guy who broke his leg 2 years ago. Like they're lacking star power name, and I think it's like I said before, a big marketing ploy to really draw those fans who left wrestling because of their dedication to Punk, and their distaste in WWE. And UFC needs a name, and even though, like you said, it'll probably be on the undercard, I guarantee that poster for UFC, whatever it's going to be, 199 or 200 or whatever it's going to be, his face is going to be front and center on that poster because, like you said, it's going to garner buys, and it'll probably topple 1.1 million buys just because you're going to get a good 200,000 of those people, probably going to be ex-wrestling fans who want to see the UFC. It may be a very high number, but I'm sure UFC's done one before. I can see them doing 1.1, 1.2 based on CM Punk's presence in this. And even from current wrestling fans who may be like, ooh, let me see what CM Punk's doing here. And they may try to hook them in there with some kind of storyline appeal, the sex appeal that they can't get in WWE. So, I agree with all your points, but I'm saying this as a non-UFC fan. So, take it for what it's worth.